Hi everyone, and welcome to this last video in the series on antibiotics. In this video, we're going to go through a class of antibiotic known as the protein synthesis inhibitors. But let's start off, like we have in the other videos, by the concept of selective toxicity. So this is basically how do we kill bacteria cells with keeping our own cells unaffected. So this is an important concept in pharmacology, and we need to understand how this is tackled. So we have bacteria and human cells. We need to figure out how we can target their difference whilst not affecting our own. Now in the first video, we saw that they have a cell wall, whereas we don't have a cell wall. So we can use a class of medication like the penicillins, the cephalosporins, and the vancomycin to target the production of their cell wall. Therefore, they die. This doesn't affect us because we don't have a cell wall. The next group of antibiotics that we tackled were the folate inhibitors. Because they need to create the folate, so the bacteria need to create their own folate through the host of enzymes, whereas we get our folate from diet. So therefore, we can look at their enzyme, block that enzyme, and then they can't create folate. Therefore, they can't create nucleotides and they can't replicate their DNA. And that's what causes them to die. And that's the class of medications like the sulfonamides. Now we moved into a little bit more tricky area, and that's DNA replication. Both cells, so bacteria and human cells, need to replicate their DNA. So this is going to be more challenging. What we found is the machinery that the bacteria use to replicate their DNA is a little bit different to ours, so we can exploit those, and that's how those antibiotics that we spoke about, that's the fluoroquinones, target their machinery without affecting ours. So this now leads us to today's video, the final difference, and that's the protein synthesis. As you can see, bacteria and humans do need to synthesize their own proteins. So again, this is going to be a little bit tricky. How do we affect their process of protein synthesis without affecting ours? So it's important to remember that the organelle that plays a really important role in protein synthesis are the ribosomes. So bacterial ribosomes are a little bit different to our ribosomes, and that's what we're going to target. That's what we're going to harness, that difference, to hopefully kill bacteria without affecting ours. Now the ribosomes in bacteria, they have two subunits. One is called a 30S subunit and a 50S subunit. So that's kind of the two parts that they need to lock together to help make mRNA into proteins, whereas ours are 40S and 60S. So ours are slightly different. So therefore, this group of antibiotics we're going to cover today, being the protein synthesis inhibitors, hopefully will target these subunits and not our subunits. Now these class of antibiotics, there's four that I want you to remember. There's the aminoglycosides, there's the tetracyclines, the phenolphthaleins, and the macrolides. But before I go into each individual class, let's refresh our memory on how we actually produce proteins. So the first starting point is DNA. Bacteria have DNA, humans have DNA. We hold ours in the in the nucleus. Bacteria, there's a circular in the cytoplasm. So in any case, the DNA have to be opened up and it needs to be read, and an mRNA template is created. This mRNA is then created or translated, should I say. So this process from DNA into mRNA is transcription, and then mRNA into proteins is translation. For this process to happen, and this is what the crux of today is, going from mRNA into a protein, there are three main steps. There's the initiation, the elongation, which means the lengthening of the peptide chain, which becomes the protein, and then the termination of that process. Let's have a look at those three steps now. So the first thing we need is the mRNA strand, which goes from the 5' to the 3' end, and then we start and engage. So this is now bacteria protein synthesis. So we engage with the 30 subunit with the ribosome. So the ribosome locks on to the mRNA, hopefully locating where the start codon is, which is those kind of 3 points of the nucleotide. So once the start codon has been established with the 30S and the mRNA, what we need to bring in is now tRNA, which is the transport RNA. So these tRNA are actually going to bring in the amino acids to make a long chain of amino acids, which makes the protein. So the first kind of codon we need to find is the start codon. That's to start and initiate this process off. So the first start codon needs to correspond to the anticodon of the tRNA, which is going to bring the first amino acid in. And this actually takes place in a particular location called the P location. So with the 3 locations in the ribosomes, we have an A location, a P location, and an E location. The way I'll get you to remember it is A is the attachment, P is the peptide chain, and the E is the exit. So basically, once we get started, what we're going to see is the tRNA comes in at the attachment or the A site, then it translocates across to the P site, and then once the empty tRNA, because it's dropped off its amino acids, will exit at the E site. So the first thing we need to do is initiate it. So the 30 subunit binds to the mRNA, the start codon is found, the first tRNA will come along which corresponds to that codon, so the tRNA comes in place with an amino acid, which is methionine. And what that then does is allows the 50S to come in place. The 50S then comes into place. I'll just rub that part out. And the 50 still has those 3 sites, the A, the P, and the E. So the first tRNA kind of sits in the P site with its first amino acid. And now what we've got is the initiation process has now begun. So now the whole complex has come together. The 30S, the mRNA, the 50S, and the first tRNA. So now we've got an initiation complex that's about to begin. And so what we would see from this point onwards, the whole complex moving down the mRNA from the 5 to the 3 end. This is just going to translocate down, move down, and new tRNAs are going to come in. And as the new ones come in, it swaps off to lengthen the peptide chain. So what we're essentially seeing, new tRNAs coming in, the growing peptide chain jumps on to the one that's just arrived, and because it's moving down one slot, that then means the elongation really starts to take place in the P site, and then that empty T, which has dropped off its amino acid, will then exit and disappear, and that's why it's called the E site for exit. Once it's moved down and found the stop codon, which is those 3 nucleotides that tells the machinery that we've got come to the end of the mRNA, and this will then terminate. They all split apart, all 3 components, 30S, 50S, and the mRNA splits apart, and the process stops. So this is how we generally, or how a bacteria, but we do this in our cells as well, this is how we create a protein from a mRNA construct. So this is the process. Now we need to figure out how the antibiotics work. Now the first antibiotic that I want to go through is the aminoglycosides. This one primarily affects the 30 subunit. So the aminoglycosides, well, first of all, what's the name mean? Amino meaning it adds an amine, which is a NH2 to a sugar. That's the end part, the aminoglycoside. The glycoside part means sugar. So it adds an amino to a sugar, and that's that class of antibiotics. Under this class of antibiotics, we have the gentamicin, neomycin, amikacin, tobramycin, and streptomycin. So these all fit under the aminoglycosides, but basically as a group, it's just an aminated sugar construct, okay? Now what it does, it binds to the 30 subunit, which stops the initiation process. So it stops the whole 3 clicking together. That means if you're not initiating, you're not going to get the protein or the mRNA read, you're not going to make the protein. In some other cases, so that's the primary way it works, but in some other cases what it will also do is it kind of misreads the mRNA codons. That then means it probably will create a protein, but it's a dysfunctional protein because it has been misread, therefore created incorrectly, and the protein becomes dysfunctional. Now, depending on if it's either not initiated to begin with or the protein's been made but it's been made incorrectly, this will determine whether it is a bactericidal outcome or a bacteriostatic outcome. In any case, this is going to be the function of the bacteria of the antibiotic being primarily focused on the 30 subunit. Now, with the aminoglycosides, they need oxygen for the bacteria to bring it into the cell. So it's oxygen dependent for that absorption. That then means that it's not overly effective for anaerobic species. So where this antibiotic will be useful is it's more selectively toxic to gram-negative bacteria, particularly those that originate in the gut, but can also manifest as sepsis. So that's the aminoglycosides. The next one are the tetracyclines. This as a group, tetra means 4. So again, as the chemical structure, it's a 4-cycline. That means it's a ring structure. So it's a 4-ring structure. And under this group, the tetracyclines, we do have tetracyclines, doxycycline, minocycline, and tigecycline. So this group of antibiotics, where that works is it comes in and sits on the A site. So it sits and blocks the A site primarily at the 30 subunit location on the ribosome, blocks the A site. That means the new tRNA can't dock to add in the new amino acid to allow the peptide chain to get longer. Therefore, we have a stoppage of the elongation, whereas the aminoglycosides was more in the initiation. So the tetracyclines are fairly broad spectrum, so they'll work effectively for gram-positive and gram-negative bacteria. They work with respiratory infections, STIs like chlamydia, and also tick-borne infections like Lyme disease. So that's where they seem to have more of their primary role. Then we move to, so we've done the aminoglycosides, the tetracyclines. Now we move to the phenocols, such as the chloramphenicals. So this particular group of antibiotics, they block the 50 subunit. Primarily where the phenocols will work is where we see the addition of the growing peptide chain. So in a way, it just stops the bonds between the amino acids, the peptide bonds, stops that process, therefore stops the elongation. So they also work in the elongation phase of protein synthesis. So the most common one is the chloramphenicals. Now they are fairly toxic. So their use is very limited these days. They will be used in very serious infections in a systemic use. So if a serious infection has taken hold, like meningitis or certain respiratory infections, and the other antibiotics haven't been effective, then they might employ the phenocols, but it would be in kind of a last resort strategy because they have quite a lot of toxic effects. So the benefit would have to outweigh those effects. So systemically, they're not used very commonly anymore. But one clinical indication that they are still fairly commonly used is in a topical for eye infections, particularly bacteria conjunctivitis. So that's usually where you'll encounter the chloramphenicals. Lastly, we have the macrolides. So this is the last group of the protein synthesis inhibitors. In this group, we have azithromycin, erythromycin, and clarithromycin. So this is the macrolides. Macro meaning large, lides mean lactone. Again, this comes down to its chemical structure. So this group of antibiotics, this will target the 50 subunit as well. It primarily comes in at the P site. So similar location to the phenocols, but instead of affecting the peptide bonding, this just stops the translocation, so the swap in from the P to the A to lengthen the peptide chain. So it's more about the translocation than the protein chemical bonding chain in the protein. So that again would be more the elongation, and that is the macrolides. Macrolides are primarily used in cases, has similar mode of or spectrum of activity as the penicillins, so more gram-positive selective, and it would be employed in such cases where a person might have a penicillin allergy, so it would be used in a similar kind of clinical indication as that regard. So there we have it. We've done all the antibiotics now. In this video, you have seen primarily the 4 main protein synthesis inhibitors, being the aminoglycosides, affecting the 30 subunit, specifically the initiation, the tetracyclines, again the 30 subunit at the 8A location, the phenocols, affecting the 50 subunit at the protein chemical bonding phase, and then the macrolides, which is in the translocation phase at the P site In any case, these 4 antibiotics are used as protein synthesis inhibitors, but now this concludes the series on antibiotics. Hopefully you've learnt a lot and enjoyed these videos.